The big one is a hypothetical earthquake of magnitude 8+ that is expected to happen in the western United States. Such an earthquake will produce incalculable devastation to human civilization within about 50 to 100 miles of the quake zone, especially in Los Angeles and San Francisco. No one knows when the big one will happen, because scientists cannot yet predict earthquakes with any precision. But Nostradamus knew it, and wrote it in his Les Prophets copyright ties over 450 years ago. This presentation will reveal this secret. Before that, you need to be explained some basic knowledge of decoding Nostradamus prophecies. Please be patient and watch this textbook video before making a conclusion. In September 2017, we cracked the prophecy of Nostradamus, and the skills obtained from it can be applied to quite a few unsolved quatrains. Century 9 verse 31. The trembling of the earth at Mortara. The tin island of San George hath sunk. Drowsy with peace. War will arise. At Easter in the temple abysses opened. On April 16, 2017, Western Easter, North Korea launched a medium-range ballistic missile, which caused a fierce backlash from the United States. North Korea conducted its sixth nuclear test, allegedly a hydrogen bomb test, on September 3, 2017. It caused an earthquake of 6.3 magnitude near NK's nuclear test site. How to understand these hints of sight and time? Searching for the name Mortara on Google, we found a place called Mortara is located in northern Italy. But how to connect Italy and North Korea? We display the map of North Korea and Italy side by side on the right. By comparing the map of NK's nuclear test site with the map of Italy's Mortara, we realized that the prophet was using geographic similarity to imply the location of the target, which we named metaphorical locating. Locating here means to indicate a location. We do find that in many quatrains, Nostradamus used geographic similarity or geomorphic similarity to refer to other sites in the world by sites in Europe. And the trembling of Mortara here obviously refers to the earthquake caused by the NK's nuclear test. For the San George Island mentioned in line 2, through Google, we found it's an island with the same name, in southern Florida, United States. There are many islands of San George on the Earth. The evidence to determine this island comes from a concurrent event of the same period. Nostradamus hardly gave out the date. He sometimes marked a certain date by describing multiple events that occurred in the same period. His method is called cross-marking dating. Dating here means identifying on the date. If we are mind-blowing enough, we will find that the sequence number, C9V31 of this quatrain, seems to be related to the date of the event, September 3rd. Yes, after a lot of analysis of quatrains, we find that it is in about 40% of his quatrains. The prophets seem to use number puzzle to imply the date of the event, month or day. This technique is called index dating. A list of more examples of indexed appointments is as follows. quatrain C2V65, has long been considered a prophecy of a great earthquake in the western U.S. But except for a large amount of hindsight, the dazzling Nostradamus decoders hardly contributed a successful pre-warning, let alone truly understanding this quatrain. Century to verse 65. The sloping part great calamity, to be done through Hesperia and Insubria, the fire in the ship, plague and captivity, Mercury in Sagittarius, Saturn will fade. The sloping part and calamity in the first line directly show that this is a disaster prophecy. The park here seems to be related to the famous Disneyland in California. Further evidence is in the two nouns Hesperia and Insubria mentioned in the second line. Hesperia is Spanish, meaning the west. And if you open the map, you can also find a small city named Hesperia, dozens of kms northeast of Los Angeles, which further confirms the connection between this quatrain and California. You will be shocked that Hesperia is just located on the southern section of the San Andreas Fault. On average, the San Andreas Fault ruptures every 150 years, but the southern parts of the fault have remained inactive for over 200 years. It is overdue for the big one. Googling the word Insubria, we found that it points to the Duchy of Milan in ancient Italy. We put the map of ancient Italy and the map of Western America together below. From the perspective of geographic similarity or metaphorical locating, the prophets seem to metaphorically refer to the western U.S. as Italy here, and the location of the Insubria or Duchy of Milan corresponds to a large area from western California to Vancouver, Canada. Given these evidence, don't you believe that this quatrain is really pointing to the big one? Now we are trying to decode the time of occurrence from this quatrain. It is not surprising to say that there will be a major earthquake in California. For a long time, people have always believed that the San Andreas Fault is locked, loaded, and it will churn in a great earthquake at any time. Generally speaking, prophet never gave the date directly, but just in the third and fourth lines of this quatrain, we can get the exact date by decoding the time clues given. The first secret is in the third line, the fire in the ship, plague and captivity. It was only a few months ago that we suddenly realized that it should actually point to the Grand Princess Cruise incident. The details of the Grand Princess Cruise incident can be obtained from Wikipedia as follows. This event is in line with the Euro-Ocean, plague and captivity mentioned in the third verse. According to cross-marking dating, the huge disaster seems just around the corner, very likely in 2020. Furthermore, the fourth line of the quatrain implies a more precise date. According to the astrological dating mentioned in our last video, Mercury in Sagittarius indicates a more specific date interval. In 2020, Mercury will be in Sagittarius from December 1st to December 20th. Another clue comes from the second half of the fourth line. Saturn will fade. Generally speaking, starlight will not dim for no reason, except it is very close to a bright object. In astrology, this phenomenon is called conjunction. As it happens, on December 17th, Saturn will conjunct the Moon, and on December 21st, Jupiter will also conjunct Saturn, the closest great conjunction in 400 years. which was claimed as a sign of extremely dangerous by the Indian astrology genius Abhiyanan a few months ago. We can now be very sure that the big one will arrive between December 1st to 20th, 2020. More quatrains for the looming disaster. Around 2016, we discovered 3 prophecies about the Italian volcano, earthquake and tsunami. The C10 V60 is the most noticeable. We have marked 8 cities mentioned in this quatrain on the map of Italy. It can be seen from the 3rd line that the disaster should happen at the turn of a certain year. But we have also wondered for years, according to the terrain of the Mediterranean, what kind of volcano or earthquake will trigger a tsunami of this magnitude? Until recently, we suddenly realized if the prophet could metaphorically refer to Insubri as the Western United States, these place names might also reflect those cities on the West Coast. In other words, these 3 quatrains are also prophecies about the big one. Soon we found the evidence. Therefore, the 4th line of this quatrain can be interpreted as fire, earthquake, water. What an unfortunate Christmas. This perfectly matches our conclusion that the disaster will happen between December 1st to 20th. So far this year, we have seen wildfires that have occurred in California, corresponding to fire, and earthquakes and tsunamis that will occur later, corresponding to earthquake and water, and they are very likely to arrive in December 2020. The emotions expressed by Nostradamus in this quatrain are extraordinary, showing how serious this disaster would be. If you compare the map of Italy with the map of the west coast of North America, you can see that the protagonist of the big one will not be an earthquake, but a huge tsunami, ranging from Vancouver to San Francisco, and even to the coastal cities of Alaska. They would be very dangerous, and the tsunami may rush into the land for tens of kilometers. Most people only know that there is a San Andreas Fault zone in the western United States, but in the sea northwest of that, there is another fault zone called the Cascadia Subduction Zone, which extends 700 miles along the Pacific Northwest coast. If a major earthquake occurs on the Cascadia Fault zone, the resulting tsunami will not only sweep the northwest coast of the United States, but also affect Hawaii, including the east coast of Japan and China. The seaquake on Cascadia Fault zone will not only trigger a chain reaction on the seaward portion of San Andreas Fault, and it will wake up the entire San Andreas Fault, causing more earthquakes and tsunamis that will bring devastating damage to the west coast of North America. Although no details can be found from Nostradamus' prophecy, but the Billy Myramian contact report reflects the most terrifying situation. Between December 1st to 20th, most likely around 11th, 2020, a Mag 9 plus seaquake occurred on the Cascadia Fault, near Portland, Oregon, causing the nearly 1,000-mile fault to shift about 50 meters. 20 minutes later, a huge tsunami of more than 100 feet hit northwestern North America, including the coasts of Alaska, Vancouver and San Francisco, due to continuous strong aftershocks. Around February 2021, another magnitude 8.0 earthquake on the southern section of the San Andreas Fault will be triggered, and a second tsunami will land near Long Beach, and Los Angeles will be completely buried by thick sand and soil. San Diego will also be severely affected by flooding. These two disasters will completely wipe out the area west of Highway 5, and the West Coast will no longer be suitable for human habitation for decades. We made such a warning not for grandstanding, but for conclusions based on many independent sources of information. Due to the current geology of California and the massive exploitation of shale oil, when an earthquake occurs, the stratum will liquefy and the ground will collapse and sink. Therefore, even if you drive, you may not be able to escape. The only hope is to evacuate early. If you cannot leave the dangerous sites for 20 consecutive days, please pay special attention to the date of December 11th. Thanks for watching.